After nearly 1,200 hours of printing on my X1C printer, I finally ran into kind of a big problem and it needs to be fixed. So let me bring you over to the printer, show you exactly what's going on and see if we can fix this problem today as well. So stick around. It's not exactly the X1C that's the problem, it is the AMS, at least I think so. I have some basic PLA, I have some PETG high flow, basic PLA, and PLA matte finish, and it doesn't really matter what I have loaded in. I just loaded in some materials that are a little bit lower temperature. So if I go through and I load in the first slot, the basic PLA loaded in just fine, no issues. So I'm going to unload that one. So that one worked perfectly fine, and I can do the same thing for these two slots. That one worked fine. You can unload that one. Unloaded fine, and we'll do this one. And that one loaded in fine, and we will unload that one. And this one was making a little bit of noise, but it wound back up just fine. Now let me show you what happens with this one, which is not like what's happening with the other ones. So it kind of loaded in okay, but it was making a lot of weird grinding noises. So let me show you what happens when we unload. So there's something really strange going on here. It has almost no power to wind this one back on completely. Now if I had the top closed, it probably would have done a little bit better job, but I do want to try a different spool to see if it's somewhat related to how much the spool weighs as well. I have a pretty small spool of PLA. Well, it's definitely still struggling even with a really small spool. So let's get this thing down and on the bench and we'll take it apart and see if we can figure out what exactly we need to replace. Got the 2mm hex. And with those two screws removed, we should be able to just lift this up like so. So this motor drives the feeding for all of the filaments, and because we only have an issue with one slot, I think it comes down to one of these, specifically this one here. That's really the only thing that it can be, I think. So let's start by disconnecting this, and while this is all open, we can have a look at the wear on these PTFE feed tubes to see if they need to be replaced as well. And we can unplug these two wires, and we're able to take this whole insert right out just so we have a bit better access. So I'm going to undo these connectors. Definitely is some wear going on in there. We'll have to be careful, but there are different wall thicknesses available. You see here on this side, we have a very thin walled PTFE tube, and then here's a thicker walled one. So I've cut 3, I already had one extra, and I noticed something on the inside. These came from the H2D printer. They were just extra for the AMS2 Pro. And if you look very closely on the inside, you'll notice something a little bit different with this tube than all of the other tubes. It is very clever. So the new design of the PTFE tubes from Bambu has this kind of star shape. They removed a bit of material. That means less friction, and the tubes can theoretically be even longer. So to get the PTFE tubes out, we can just reach down with a screwdriver, push this in, and they just pop right out. Close to 1 year ago, I bought this. I had no idea whether I was going to need it or not, but I was getting a lot of use out of the AMS, so I figured it'd be good to have it on hand. And finally, it came in handy. So we have 4 screws to remove. 1, 2, 3, 4. That is an M1.5, very small screws. So they were nice enough to attach the cable to this end because these are connected with some adhesive inside here. So we just need to disconnect this end. And here is our old one. And there is the new one. They look identical. Let's have a look inside to see what is going on here. So nothing is jumping out at me on the inside as being a problem. There's a little bit of junk in here, but not really a lot of wear. There is a little bit of wear on this gear right here on the inside, but that is about it, and I don't think that would have caused this problem. So it might come down to being an issue with the motor. This is a little bit dirty. This gear looks in good shape. And this gear also looks in pretty good condition. It is squealing a little bit. I popped the back off of here just to see if I could find out what was going on, and really isn't anything that's jumping out at me as being a problem. The contacts look in okay shape. Back down here, the little brass bushing inside there looks okay. But one thing I did notice is that it feels like there's a fair amount of friction. So if I add a little dab of oil, and in the bushing at the back, it does seem to spin quite a bit more freely and no more squeaking. So it could have been a lubrication issue with these bushings. Not sure if anybody else has had this same problem or not. It would also be nice just to be able to buy this motor and replace this rather than the entire assembly. So it could very well be the motor. Let's go ahead and put the new one in, and we will put this all back together and test it out. I'm just about to make another purchase on Maker World, so I'm going to add 1 more of these so I can keep it on hand, just in case one of the other ones wears down. Definitely sounded a lot better loading in, and we're going to do the unload. This is the moment of truth. I'm going to try it one more time just to make sure. We'll load it back in. Beautiful. Absolutely perfect. Very happy with that. So if it is broke, do fix it by replacing the AMS feeder unit if you're having grinding noises or trouble rewinding onto the spool. Now, unfortunately, they do not sell this motor just by itself. You have to buy the entire unit. So that could be a little bit of a savings. Maybe at some point they'll sell just the motor by itself. I was thinking about selling my original AMS and replacing it with an AMS 2 Pro, but I think I'll probably just keep this one and buy an AMS 2 Pro on top of it because this one still is pretty good for storage. I want to thank my patrons for helping to make these videos possible, and thank you for watching. I hope to see you on the next one.